have the Armed Forces Minister James Heappey listening to that. James Heappey, good morning to you.
Good morning.
You are an experienced man in these matters, but even for you, as I feel it now, you feel a chill. That in 10 minutes' time, where Sergei is sitting now, Russian bombs could be falling, and yet we're still questioning how and when we send anti-air missiles. Every delay is a deadly delay, James Heappey.
I agree that we are in the most despicable circumstance where the Russian tactic appears to be to encircle Ukrainian cities and then wage apparently indiscriminately artillery barrages against the civilians in those cities. I mean, it is disgusting. And I think, I understand you will want to challenge about what the UK government is doing, but I think front up it is really important to say that all of that is happening on the instruction of one man, which is President Putin, and the military chain of command beneath him is enacting his orders.
Yeah.
They are guilty of committing war crimes. They must stop.
But sanctions are what we seem to be doing, and obviously sanctions we are hearing are starting to hurt the Russian economy and doing that quite quickly. But it appears, James Heappey, that sanctions are not going to stop Putin from bombing maternity hospitals and children's wards and killing doctors and stopping the Ukrainians from having to build mass graves to bury their dead. Sanctions alone, do you believe, will still work?
Well, but sanctions is not the only thing that we're doing. The UK was the first to send anti-tank weapons, these NLAW weapon systems, and the consequence of those being sent, as well as the contributions that many other countries have now made as well, have been stopping Russian armoured columns in their tracks. Now, the problem is that the inability of the Russian army to take its objectives in the way that it hoped to has meant that we've now got these awful bombardments. The international community has provided Stinger anti-aircraft missiles. So those are sort of an entry-level anti-aircraft system, but they've been used to great effect by the Ukrainians, killing, the Ukrainians claim, 44 Russian aircraft and 48 Russian helicopters already. The consequence of that is that Russia has been unable to achieve air superiority. It also means the Russian Air Force has been unable to operate effectively at day. What they're doing is operating now at night. The Ukrainian people have asked us to close their skies. That's not something that NATO can do by flying over Ukraine, because that would be to become a direct part of the conflict. But what we're looking at is sending these high-velocity missiles, which do have a nighttime capability. And your point was, we need to stop thinking about it and do it.
Yeah.
Well, the things that we are in the process of doing are just making sure that we can train the Ukrainian soldiers, we can get them into the country. The decision to send them, in principle, has been taken, but clearly this is a brand new weapon system to the Ukrainian armed forces, and just sending it to them won't in itself change the situation. We need to get them trained up and then the weapon systems into the place they're needed.
As we heard from the Deputy Mayor, though, sort of any delay is a deadly delay. 10 minutes' time, as Ranveer was pointing out, they are expecting more bombing to start. What sort of numbers are we talking about here, James Heappey, just with regards to the amount of these weapons? We understand that they're going to have to be trained up to use them, but are we talking about thousands? Are we talking about tens of thousands? Because as has been pointed out, even though Volodymyr Zelensky wants air support, we can't do that. NATO can't do that, but they can control the air if they have enough of these weapons to go round to protect their skies.
Absolutely. So from the UK, these high-velocity missiles, we're not talking thousands or tens of thousands. Frankly, it doesn't need to be that number, because as we've seen with the Stingers, it only takes a number of aircraft to be shot down before Russia has to adjust its tactics again. These are a very, very effective weapon system.
So it will be a couple of hundred?
I don't want to put a number on it, not least because, we're just looking at the stockpiles to look at what we can release, and we're speaking to the manufacturer to see what they've got on the shelf, because what Ben Wallace has directed is that we send as many as we possibly can. So I'm not going to put a number on it here and now, but I will tell you that we're sending as many as we can. And other countries in the Western Alliance, through their bilateral lethal aid contributions are also sending more advanced anti-air
capabilities. And will that happen
as well.
even with those delays, and you're going to have to talk to manufacturers? Would you expect them to be there by the weekend, or are we talking about the middle of next week, because the bombing's happening in 10 minutes in Mariupol?
So, I'm clear that the need is urgent. What I can't do is give you the exact detail of when these things arrive. As you would imagine, the Russians know, because we're talking about it on the British media this morning. The Russians know that our intent is to send a highly capable weapon system to train Ukrainians in its use, and that it will have the effect of denying the Russian Air Force the ability to operate with impunity at night. Very obviously, if I was to tell you when we are intending to send those, that would massively increase the risk that those would be taken out on their route into Ukraine, and therefore would never be brought to bear in defence of Mariupol or any other city. So I can't share with you that detail. All I can do, and I apologise to your viewers that I can't, but all I can do is say that we are working. I got into the MOD this morning at 6:20. The building was already packed full of people who have been working all night, because we are working every second, because we know that we are working in an office that is not threatened by an air raid, and the people in Mariupol are listening to sirens and fearing for their lives.
Yeah. How fast are the Home Office working, though? Because there appears to be quite open frustration with Priti Patel and the Home Office over how we are processing visas, or largely not, for those 22,000 who have applied to come to the UK. This is Alec Sheltbrook, a Tory MP, who just displayed some of the deep frustration with the fact that we have perhaps 1,000 visas processed, whereas Ireland, for example, have 3,000. Take a listen.
We don't want to stand in this house and listen to plans and processes. We want dates, we want action, and the Home Office must react far more quickly than it's doing and get to the point of hubs of people, get them processed and get them in. This is a disgrace. When the Minister leaves this dispatch box, ask him to go back to the Home Office and tell them to get a grip.
He speaks for many this morning, James Heappey. What can you tell us about that? That frustration is real, it's visceral, and it is shared by many, many people in this country.
I completely agree. People want to do the right thing for those who are fleeing the utter devastation that we're seeing in Ukraine. Now, there are two things that the government can do, and the government is doing both. Firstly, in the Home Office, for the Home Secretary, there is policy choice around how you balance risk versus getting people through the process as quickly as possible with the minimum number of checks. And I know that she is looking at that, and she wants people to be able to come to the UK in the easiest way possible.
James Heappey, can I just interject there?
May I finish the question? OK,
can I just
please.
interject on that particular point? The Ukrainian embassy have said themselves that the majority of Ukrainians don't necessarily want to come to the UK, but those that do, women and children, are doing so for a reason. They've schlepped through Belgium or France or wherever to get to the furthest point, essentially, from Ukraine. Many are staying close to Ukraine. So if they're making that effort, what risk is it? And we were hearing this morning that each individual family member has to apply individually. Why can't they apply as a family? Where are the staff in Lille? Jonathan Swain is there this morning. He hasn't seen a single soul from the Home Office. There's meant to be a pop-up centre there. There isn't one. People have to be referred there. They can't go there directly. This is a cock-up, isn't it?
Well, I understand your anger in the question. You're reflecting the concern of many people around the country. And as I say, I know that the Home Secretary is right now and overnight has been looking at how policy can be changed to make things easier. But if you allow, I just want to get onto the other part of the equation, which I'm personally more directly involved in, because the other way of speeding this up is by increasing the volume of applications that we can process at any one time. And we have made an offer to the Home Office, which they've accepted, to deploy the troops that are on standby for humanitarian purposes to go to these visa application centres, particularly those in the countries that are on the border of Ukraine, in order to increase capacity. Now, we need to work through the diplomatic part of that. We can't just deploy troops into a country without the permission of that country, but we're working on that. What we want to do is, of course, the government will look at the policy decisions, but within the MOD, what we will do is make sure that we work with our colleagues in UK Visas and Immigration to make sure that the system can get as many people through as quickly as possible, whatever the process requirements are.
Will any of those servicemen be going to Lille or to Calais, to where these refugees are finding themselves?
So Lille nor Calais are currently in our plans because that's not what we've been asked by the Home Office to look at.
But we know that refugees are arriving there and they desperately need support, they desperately need help, and they need it to happen quickly. And if it's your servicemen who are going to facilitate that happening quicker, let's put them where they need to be.
Well, and if that ask is made, then of course we'll. But of course the French government get a say in that too. There has to be a willingness to allow British troops to be working in France. Even if they go in civilian clothing, there's still a requirement to get that approval. But I think a lot of people have been making their way across Western Europe and ending up in northern France, perhaps because the capacity wasn't available for them to apply for the visa at the point at which they first crossed the border. So my hope is that if we can work with colleagues in UKVI to increase the capacity of these visa application centres, actually people will find that they can secure a British visa much more quickly after they leave Ukraine in the first place, and therefore potentially it becomes less of a challenge in northern France altogether.
When you say there needs to be a policy change from the Home Office, we are running out of time. Is it that hostile environment for refugees, which, you know, Priti Patel has sort of staked her claim on? Is it just that there is a habit of saying no and they just can't move quickly enough to say yes? I don't think so. I mean, my reflection is, and I have to be honest and say, look, you know, in the summer during the Afghan evacuation, Tariq Ahmed, the Foreign Office Minister for South Asia, Kevin Foster, the Immigration Minister, and I were meeting every day and you know, to take real-time decisions about how to make the process quicker, to bring out more people more quickly. And there were lots of decisions taken then to make it really easy and to accept quite a lot of risk. I think there is all the same urgency and all the same appetite for risk there now. Okay. I don't think anybody's pretending that we didn't get off to a slow start. Well. But what I can tell you is that the meetings that I had yesterday have shown me that there is real urgency and real intent with my colleagues in the Home Office, and we in the MOD are working to support them as best we can. Well, it's very fascinating to hear you say that you in your department and two others found ways to make urgent decisions in real time, which clearly Priti Patel isn't doing in the Home Office.
No, Priti Patel was the Home Secretary in August as well.
Yeah, well, OK.
And she took those decisions. Kevin, Tariq and I, as the junior ministers, may have crunched the detail, but Priti Patel took the decisions to accept that risk in August.
Well, OK.
She should be commended for doing so.
Replicating that now, perhaps.
As we all know,
James
it can't come quickly enough. There is a real urgency, as we all know. We're going to have to leave it there. We appreciate your time this morning. Thank you, Mr. Heappey.
Thank you very much, Annie. Thank you.